I found my husband's goodbye letter on a Tuesday morning, tucked inside the coffee canister where he knew I'd look first thing. 23 years of marriage, and he couldn't say it to my face. Elaine, it began, in his careful architect's handwriting. By the time you read this, I'll be halfway to Montana. I need you to know this isn't about you. It's about who I've become next to you. Or rather, who I've stopped being. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry, but I can't keep disappearing a little more each day. Michael. I stood there in our kitchen in Asheville, North Carolina, holding that piece of paper while the coffee maker gurgled behind me, and I realized I couldn't even cry. The tears wouldn't come. Instead, I felt this strange, hollow recognition, like finding out you've been living with a slow leak in your roof for years, and the damage was always there, you just hadn't looked up. I was 51 years old, and my husband had just erased himself from my life with a paragraph. The thing about long marriages is that you stop seeing the person. You see the role they play. The man who takes out the trash, who pays the mortgage, who sits across from you at dinner, scrolling through his phone. Michael had become furniture to me, reliable, functional, utterly invisible. Or maybe I had become that to him. I called in sick to the library where I'd worked for 18 years. Helen, my boss, didn't ask questions. She'd been through her own divorce a decade ago, and she must have heard something in my voice, that specific frequency of a life cracking open. I spent that first day just walking through our neighborhood with its craftsman houses and carefully tended gardens, past the coffee shop where Michael and I used to meet on Saturday mornings, back when we were young and still curious about each other, down to the French Broad River, where I sat on a bench and watched kayakers navigate the current, their bright boats like confetti on the water. What I couldn't stop thinking about was this. I didn't know if I was sad or relieved. We'd had a good life. 2 kids, Olivia and Ben, both grown now and living their own lives in different cities. A beautiful house, stable careers. We'd checked all the boxes, but somewhere along the way, we'd stopped being lovers, stopped being friends, and had settled into being roommates who shared a last name and a mortgage. I hadn't touched him with intention and desire in over a year, maybe 2. He hadn't looked at me, like truly seen me, in even longer. The letter said this wasn't about me, but of course it was. It was about both of us, about how we'd let the dailiness of life erode something we'd once protected fiercely. The call started that evening. Cursed Olivia, her voice tight with fury. Dad just texted me, Mom. What the hell happened? He said he left you. I was sitting on our back porch, watching the light fade behind the mountains, a glass of wine going warm in my hand. He needed space, I said, which wasn't the truth, but was easier than the truth. Space? Mom, you don't abandon your wife for space. Are you okay? Do you want me to come home? I'm fine, honey. Really. This has been coming for a long time. That doesn't make it okay. No, I agreed. But it makes it true. Ben called an hour later, his voice softer, more confused. He was 26, teaching high school English in Portland. Mom, I don't understand. You guys seemed fine. We were fine, I said. That was exactly the problem. The first week was strange. I kept expecting Michael to come home, to hear his key in the lock. I'd cooked for 2 people for so long that I kept making too much food. The house felt enormous and too quiet. I took a leave of absence from work. Helen approved it immediately. I spent my days cleaning, organizing, going through closets like I was excavating an archaeological site. I found love letters Michael had written me during our first year of marriage, when he was in grad school in Boston and I was finishing my degree in Charlotte. The way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, he'd written. The sound of your laugh when something genuinely surprises you. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by these letters, and wondered when he'd stopped noticing those things. It was Helen who suggested me to join the community pottery class. You need to do something with your hands, she said, when she stopped by with groceries and bourbon. Something that's just for you. The class met Tuesday and Thursday evenings at a studio in the River Arts District. There were 8 of us, mostly women around my age, plus one younger guy. The instructor was a woman named Iris, probably mid-60s. With silver hair she wore in a long braid and hands perpetually stained with terracotta dust. "Don't try to control it too much," she said during our first class. "Pottery is a conversation. You suggest, the clay responds." I thought about Michael, about how we'd stopped having conversations years ago. The other person I noticed immediately was a man named Daniel. He sat at the wheel across from me, completely absorbed in his work. He was probably around my age, maybe a few years older, with gray threading through his dark hair and deep lines around his eyes. After the 3rd class, as we were cleaning up, he spoke to me for the first time. "You're getting better," he said, nodding at the misshapen bowl I'd managed to keep from collapsing. "Better than terrible is still pretty bad," I said. He smiled. "Better than terrible is progress. That's all any of us can ask for." Over the following weeks, Daniel and I fell into an easy rhythm. We'd work in companionable silence, sometimes talk. He told me he'd been coming to the class for 2 years, that he'd started after his wife died. "Cancer," he said simply. 3 years ago this month. Laura was 54. "I'm so sorry. The pottery helps, having something to do with my hands." I told him about Michael, about the letter in the coffee canister. "He's been calling," I admitted. "Texting. He says he needs time to figure out who he is." "And what do you say back?" "Nothing. I don't know what to say. I'm angry at him for leaving, but I'm also angry at myself for not seeing it coming." "You can't build a marriage by yourself," Daniel said. "If he was checking out, that's not on you. But I checked out too. That's the part that keeps me up at night." Spring turned to summer, and my life developed a new rhythm. I went back to work part-time. I went to pottery twice a week. I had dinner with friends, and I spent time with Daniel. It started innocently, coffee after class, then dinner at a taqueria near the studio. He told me about his life, about the 30 years he'd spent as a structural engineer before retiring early, about his 2 daughters, both married with kids. "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" I asked him one evening. We were sitting on a restaurant patio, sharing wine. He considered this. "I don't know. Laura and I had 32 years together. Some people don't get that lucky. It feels greedy to ask for more." "But you're only 56. You could have another 30 years. "So could you," he said, meeting my eyes. "What are you going to do with them?" I didn't have an answer. Meanwhile, Michael came back in August. He called first, asking if he could come to the house, if we could talk. There were practical things to discuss. Money, the house, lawyers. I said yes. He arrived on a Saturday afternoon, driving a truck I didn't recognize, looking tanned and somehow younger. Montana had been good to him. We sat in the living room, an arm's length of space between us. "You look good," he said. "Thanks. Elaine, I owe you an apology. A real one." Walking out like that, leaving a letter, that was cowardly. Yes, I did deserve better. He winced. "I've been seeing a therapist out there, trying to figure out why I ran." "And what did you figure out?" "That I was afraid. Of getting older, of being ordinary, of waking up one day and realizing my life was over and I'd never taken any risks. Instead of talking to you about it, I just bolted. You made me the wall. You made our marriage the prison." "I know, and sorry. But Elaine," he looked up at me, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen in years. "I think we can fix this. I think if we both try, we could get back what we had." My stomach dropped. "You want to come back?" "Yes, I want to come home. I want to fight for us." I didn't answer him right away. I told him I needed time to think. He agreed. He got a short-term rental in town, said he'd wait as long as I needed. That night, I called Daniel. He was there in 20 minutes. We sat on the back porch, and I told him everything. About Michael's apology, his request to try again. "What do you want to do?" Daniel asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes. We built a whole life together. Maybe I owe it to that history to try. And the other part?" I looked at him. This man who'd helped me remember what it felt like to be seen. "The other part of me knows that I've been happier in the last 5 months than I was in the last 5 years of my marriage." "Then don't go back," Daniel said simply. "But what if I regret it?" He reached over and took my hand. "Elaine, you can't live your life based on what-ifs. You can only live it based on what's true right now. And right now, you're already free. Don't give that up unless you're absolutely sure you want to." I met Michael for breakfast 3 days later. "I've made my decision," I said. He sat up straighter, hope written across his face. "I don't want to try again. I want a divorce." The hope crumbled. "Elaine, let me finish. You were right to leave, Michael. Not right to do it the way you did, but right to recognize that we weren't working anymore. These last few months have shown me that I don't want to go back to being invisible. You were never invisible to me. Yes, I was, and you were invisible to me. We stopped seeing each other a long time ago, and I think we both deserve to be with people who actually see us." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Is there someone else?" I thought about Daniel, about the way he looked at me when I talked, like every word mattered. "No," I said, and it was the truth. "This isn't about someone else. It's about me. It's about choosing myself for the first time in a very long time." The divorce took 4 months to finalize, but 2 weeks before the papers were supposed to be signed, Ben called. His voice was shaking. "Mom, I need to tell you something. About Dad." My heart stopped. "Is he okay?" "He's fine, physically. But Mom, he had an affair before he left. That's why he went to Montana." My whole world tilted sideways. "What?" "Her name's Rachel. She works at his firm. They'd been seeing each other for 8 months before he left. She broke him off, told him she couldn't be with someone who was married. That's when he ran." "Mom, I just found out. Dad told me last night, drunk and crying, saying he couldn't live with the guilt anymore." I sat down hard on my kitchen floor, the phone pressed to my ear. All this time, all these months of feeling guilty for checking out of the marriage, for not fighting harder, for being part of the problem. And Michael had been cheating. The letter, the talk about needing to find himself, the therapy sessions about fear and stagnation, it had all been lies, or half-truths at best. "Mom, are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm so angry at him. I can't even look at him right now. He wants to talk to you, to explain." "No," I said, my voice suddenly clear and strong. "I don't need his explanation. Tell him the divorce stands. Tell him I'm done." When I hung up, I sat there for a long time. Then I called Daniel. "Can you come over?" He found me still sitting on the kitchen floor when he arrived. I told him everything. About Rachel, about the 8 months of lies, about how Michael's entire departure had been built on deception. "I feel like an idiot," I said. "I spent all this time thinking we were both equally responsible for the marriage failing, and he was just a coward who couldn't face what he'd done." "You're not an idiot," Daniel said, sitting down beside me. "He lied to you. That's on him, not you. But I should have known. I should have seen the signs. Or maybe you trusted your husband, which is what you're supposed to do in a marriage." I leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around me. We sat there on my kitchen floor, and for the first time since Ben's call, I felt like I could breathe. "I need to ask you something," I said, "and I need you to be honest. Always. Are you with me because I'm available? Because I'm safe and broken, and you don't have to risk much?" He pulled back to look at me. "No. I'm with you because when I'm around you, the world feels brighter. Because you make me laugh. Because you're brave in ways you don't even realize. Because I wake up thinking about you and go to sleep thinking about you, and every moment in between feels better when you're in it. I started crying then. Not sad tears, something else. Relief maybe, or joy. I love you, I said. I love you, and I'm terrified. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I love you. I love you too, he said, and kissed me. 3 days later, Michael showed up at my door unannounced. I almost didn't let him in. But there was something in his face, detestation and shame in equal measure, that made me step aside. I know Ben told you, he said. I know you hate me. You should hate me. I don't hate you, I said, was surprised to find it was true. I'm angry, I'm disappointed, but mostly I'm just sad that you couldn't be honest. About Rachel, about why you really left, about any of it. I was ashamed. He said, Rachel ended things and I panicked. I couldn't face you, couldn't face what I'd done, so I ran. And then I came back thinking maybe I could fix it. Thinking maybe if I got therapy and worked on myself, I could somehow make it right. But I couldn't even do that honestly. No, you couldn't. He looked at me, and there were tears in his eyes. I destroyed the best thing I ever had, and I did it because I was selfish and weak and stupid. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that none of it was your fault. I know, I said, and I did. He left after that. I watched him drive away, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just a quiet sense of closure. That chapter was over. The divorce finalized in December. Michael moved back to Montana permanently. We divided our assets, sold the house, split everything down the middle. Olivia and Ben struggled with their feelings about their father, but eventually found their way toward something like forgiveness. Not for his sake, but for their own. I bought a small cottage closer to downtown and spent weekends making it mine. I kept going to pottery, and my work was actually getting good. Good enough that Iris suggested I sell a few pieces at the studio's holiday market. And Daniel and I built something real. We took things slow at first, but by spring, we'd found our rhythm. We went hiking, saw concerts, spent Sunday mornings cooking breakfast together. His daughters visited in May, and they welcomed me with a warmth that brought me to tears. One evening in June, we were at my cottage, planting tomatoes in the garden. I've been thinking, Daniel said, patting soil around a seedling. What would you say to taking a trip? Maine, maybe? Or the Pacific Northwest? Somewhere we've never been. I'd say yes, I said, smiling. Good, because I already booked the flights. I laughed, throwing a handful of dirt at him. He caught my hand, pulled me close, kissed me with soil-stained fingers, cupping my face. I love you, Elaine Crawford, he said. I love your stubbornness, and your kindness, and the way you still can't center a pot on the wheel to save your life. I love you too, Daniel Foster, I said, even though you're bossy about tomato planting. Here's what I learned. Starting over at 50 isn't about erasing the past. It's about accepting that people will lie to you, betray you, break your heart, and choosing to stay open anyway. It's about understanding that you can't control what others do, only how you respond. Michael taught me that trust, once broken, can't be rebuilt on lies. That sometimes the person you thought you knew was never real at all. That closure doesn't come from someone else's confession. It comes from your own decision to let go. Daniel taught me that the heart doesn't have a limit, that you can build something beautiful on the foundation of loss. That love in your 50s looks different than love in your 20s, but it's no less powerful. And I taught myself that it's never too late, that betrayal doesn't define you. Your response to it does. That choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. I'm 53 years old now, and my life looks nothing like I thought it would. My marriage ended in lies I never saw coming. My house is gone. My kids are scattered across the country. But I'm happy. Really, genuinely, surprisingly happy. I make pottery that people actually want to buy. I have a partner who sees me and chooses me every single day. I have a cottage that's mine, and a garden I'm growing myself. I have a life I chose, not one that chose me. And every morning, when I make my coffee, I don't think about the letter anymore. I think about the day ahead, about the person I'm still becoming. That's the thing about starting over. You don't know who you'll be when you're finished. You just have to trust that whoever emerges will be worth meeting. And she is. She absolutely is.